we face this default, what happens next when the default is official?
There's two possibilities. Number one, that the bondholders sue tomorrow in state court, in Commonwealth Court actually, and they say, well, the money was budgeted, they didn't pay us, you have to pay us. Or they can do nothing, and then they will sit down eventually to negotiate some type of restructuring.
What do you think is going to happen? We have some people saying there will be a restructuring and that it'll be, Moody's predicts on some bonds 35 to 65 cents on the dollar. We spoke to a bond trader who says, maybe 70 cents on the dollar. You seem to think it'll be 100 cents on the dollar.
Yes, I'll explain. They sue. They can win or they lose. If they win, then why would you restructure if you're going to win the case? This is the best bond for Puerto Rico not to pay because it has no stream, no lockbox. It's basically the legislature has to budget the money. If they don't budget the money, then under bond law in the states, no, you don't have to pay it. But I understand under Puerto Rican law, which is civil law, not common law, you would have to pay
But
it.
that's the PFC bond. I'm talking about the other bonds, which are backed by tax assets or other assets.
Whew. Well, let's go through the constitutional bonds, which are the GOs. The Constitution of Puerto Rico specifically says that if the budget doesn't have enough to pay everything, the first thing that has to be paid is the debt.
But
Period.
what happens if, as Mr. Suarez says, we have a liquidity crunch starting November 1st, the chief of staff to the governor, we can't pay this and therefore we won't?
Well, the problem is that the Constitution gives you a cause of action to go against the Secretary of the Treasury and order him by the courts to pay. And I have no doubt whatsoever that each and every court, from the Court of First Instance to the Appellate Court to the Supreme Court of Puerto Rico, are going to say, you're going to pay. Give you an example. In January last year, the teachers union sued in state court in the Court of First Instance. In April, the Supreme Court decided the case. Only 3 months. And it was a lot more complicated than it is right now.
So let's keep it simple for those of us who are not legal experts. What happens to investors? Where is this going to go?
Well, the investors, even if there's a lawsuit, there will be a time in which they won't get paid. How long? That's debatable. It could be as short as 3 months or a couple of months, or it could be 3 years. We don't know because this is a new round. Puerto Rico has never defaulted on any of its debts. So,
but you expect that at the end of the day, whatever that time period is, investors will get 100 cents on the dollar.
If they hold out that long, yes. I am sure of it. I mean, there is a debt. You have to pay it. What are you going to do? This is not Argentina. In Argentina, you can't go over the Second Circuit or the Court of New York cannot go over to Argentina and say, hey, give me the money. But they can here.
But how do you pay it if you've got a depressed economy, people leaving the island in record numbers, and no growth?
The problem is that you look at the budget. There's $28 billion in the budget. There is money. The problem is the government decided that it's better to keep employees in the government and not fire anybody so they can be reelected. Period. Simple.
So you think there will have to be layoffs of people
Eventually.
and the cutting of services here in Puerto Rico?
Well, it depends on what you look at services for. I mean, you have to look, for example, electricity. Electricity is going to continue going on. Water is going to continue unless it doesn't rain. We will continue getting water. Certain services may be cut. In schools, for example, we've had a decrease in students, but an increase in teachers. Why? This makes no sense. It's all political. The people of Puerto Rico look at the government as their employer, and that is not right.
Let me wrap this up with you. What are the misconceptions mainland folk in the United States have about the citizens of the United States here in Puerto Rico?
Well, we are full citizens. Some of us were born in the States. For example, I was born in Hawaii. My father was a Marine. We moved to the States, or if you're born here, you move to the States, you have the same rights and liabilities of any citizen. It's when you live in Puerto Rico that you have the problem in terms of your rights as a citizen.
And if you were trying to explain to mainlanders the things they don't understand about Puerto Rico, what would that be?
Let's talk to the people of Florida, for example. Many people in Florida get supplemental Social Security. Even if we pay for that, and we pay for that here in Puerto Rico, we don't get it in Puerto Rico just because we're in Puerto Rico. There's a famous case called Harris versus Rosario of 1980 of the Supreme Court of the United States. I hope this will take a very short time, but we don't know.